So we have coffee from downstairs today.
Better prepared this week.
It's pretty. I don't know. This is the first time I've gotten a cappuccino from them, and I think you got a latte, and I think it's the same thing. I think it's just mine's a small latte, and yours is a big latte.
I think you're right. It's fairly inoffensive. There's nothing to write home about, but it's not terrible. It's all right.
It's so easy as a barista to get the basic knowledge that you need to understand the difference between like a flat white, a cortado, a latte, a cappuccino, and understand how to steam the milk. I find it a little bit lazy if you just can't take that little bit of initiative to figure out what the difference is, and you have these different things on the menu, but they're really the same thing. It's like that Simpsons episode where they go to some sort of carnival and it's like Indian food, Chinese food, burgers, and it goes underground and it's all the same actual just meat getting thrown to different places. I find there is I don't care what job you have. I just want to know that you are taking the proper amount of respect to learn. And I think that maybe that's why I've gotten so cranky in the last few weeks about this whole thing of like what makes a great user experience designer, why I'm not worried about AI, like the democratization of all of this, because I feel like all of these people coming in, every year when I was in Amsterdam, there is the Amsterdam Coffee Festival. Mm-hmm. By the way, I tried never to have a heart attack on those weekends from the amount of caffeine that you ingest, but oh my God, at some point you're like seeing through time, right? But you go in there and there is still this art of baristas. I remember I would get there right when they opened because I don't like crowds.
I've had really good coffee in Amsterdam. Really good coffee.
I don't like crowds. And I remember waiting for like 15, 20 minutes with this barista, this first place I walked into, because he would do he'd set the grinder, he would do a test, he'd get the extraction, and he'd be like, no, it's not quite right. I'm not going to serve this to you, and throw it out. And then he would make another one. And this person went through like 5 cups of espresso, and he's like, I'm not going to give it to you. It's like, dude, I'm not going to be able to tell the difference. But that level of craft and love and beauty and respect for the discipline.
I started learning about extraction profiles recently, thinking I could buy a machine which does this. I haven't quite crossed that line yet with coffee, but it's coming.
But I think that's something that with all the cafes that have opened everywhere, again, such a running theme that we have here. The democratization of tools that AI has brought us does not mean it is, let's say, displacing jobs. It is democratizing for even more people to become coders or become user experience designers, but not in the real way that I think of user experience or I think of computer science. It just allows more people to use the tools easier. So that's the difference. Everybody can be a barista at Starbucks, right? Not everybody is going to fly to Amsterdam to be in this like world's best barista challenge thing.
It's a business problem at the heart of it. And I think let's stay on the coffee metaphor. I mean, if your outcome, and I think this is an outcomes question, is what are you actually trying to achieve by what you're doing? So if your outcome is to produce something which has some coffee in it, some steamed milk, then you're going to look at what's the quickest, easiest, most convenient way that I can achieve that. And if your other outcome is, and I want to do this by making as much money as I can in the meantime, then you're going to go to the store and buy the cheapest beans you can get. And I did this recently when I ran out of coffee beans. I went to the local Viva here, which is a very cheap supermarket, and bought myself some coffee beans. And I came back, made myself a cup of coffee with it, and it looked like a latte like this. It tasted awful, and I'll never do it again. We're using the coffee now to burn it to keep the flies away, which is very effective. But the simple point is if my outcome was to produce something which looked like this and save me money, then it ticked that box in spades. But if my outcome is to make the best coffee I can, to enjoy the experience as much as I can, then it's a very different path that you go on. And I think sometimes we lose sight of the fact that if I want to produce an app which is functionally complete but doesn't necessarily create joy, engagement, and delight in your users, then Have you ticked all the boxes you should do? What's your outcome you're driving for?
So let me push back on that. Since so many times designers, and you mentioned this last week before, I don't remember, where you said you were working with a client where they're like, we need to reinvent everything, but they don't really want to pay for it. Like, do they really want to reinvent things?
And do they need to as well?
Yeah, but I think that comes down to, like, if you go to coffee, right? Like, most people don't need a $5, $6, $7, espresso made by some top barista, because they're not going to think about what's my acidity profile beyond somebody showing me a menu with acidity profiles and let me be special by picking what I think is. And so most people just don't care that much. So the 80% of just being good enough is good enough. Maybe maybe that's really all consulting is just saying this is good enough. This is a depressing way to start this episode. Even though we have coffee to start this episode, this is a depressing way to start it.
Should I make it worse?
Is that my life, being good enough? Make it worse.
I'll make it worse than that. When I was in Turkey recently, I actively walked to a Starbucks to get coffee there. I mean, I'm in the world of some of the best coffee on the planet, and I'm walking to a Starbucks to get a coffee because it's familiar. Well, because it's familiar, because I wanted a certain volume of milk, and because they were open at 7 a.m., which no one else is, and apparently in Turkey.
But that familiarity, that's actually so crucial. If I tie it back into software and I tie it back into user experience, right? Why do so often clients within consulting want us to benchmark and best of breed? And even like designers will screw this up all the time. It's like, I need to produce an outcome that I know people are going to be familiar with and going to be able to pick up and use from day one. I'm not in the business of redefining, travel applications or banking applications. I'm in the business of needing to move product. And in order to do that, I need the most usable and conversion-based site. I think this is, it's funny, last week we were talking all about this ability to step back and look at the customer journey and understand sort of the need at each step. And that is needed at some points, right? When you go down that route of, the first thing is out of the box, the second thing is out of the box with customization, and the third thing is complete customization. Most people actually just need out of the box because they just need to get a task done.
Because there are innovations in the product. If you've got a great product you want to bring to market, you don't need to then have an innovative, game-changing digital journey to achieve that sale. Your product drives the sales. If you've got a digital product like Lemonade or like Revolut, half of your product is in actual the interface, the tool that you use to manage it. So yes, it makes sense to innovate there. It makes sense to break the mold a bit. But if you're trying to sell, the best coffee beans on the planet or a particular type of coffee, then you just want something which will drive a sale. You want something which will get your product in front of people. So maybe your innovation's in marketing, but in the conversion, it's about
That's exactly what I was going to say. Maybe this is a marketing challenge, right? Everything is the same until the brand tells you it's different. Why did I go to Dubai Mall when they opened Gymshark? Because I had to get some Gymshark shirts and pay, pay 3 times the amount for clothes I wear to the gym where nobody sees me, right? Where I go at 6 a.m. purposefully not to run into anybody, but I have bought this because marketing is brilliant in that way. It's, new iPhone event in the next few weeks.
What's that? I completely missed that. I don't follow iPhones anymore.
Oh, every September, right? iPhone event. And I desperately need a new iPhone. I'm still on the 13. I think this will be the 17. So it's 4 years.
Wow.
Which is actually pretty solid and it still works. Topic. Well, I think we've already gone into topics for this week, but there is one thing that I wanted to explore with you. And we'll see if we don't do this in 3 minutes or if this will just ramble on forever.
I have a suspicion.
I told you before you went on vacation, I mentioned the book Surveillance Capitalism.
Yeah, it's great.
Right?
Love that.
And so I finished it this morning. I finally finished it. I was at the tail end.
It's a long book.
This wasn't from that book, and I can't remember which podcast I had heard this from. Somebody was discussing is AI and the companies that make AI the new form of like colonialism. of digital colonialism. The reason why is they were talking about all of the, like, let's say it started with social media, where you had Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, and you would go to developing markets in order to do the content moderation. So who are the people that are suffering from, whether that is violence images, child pornography images, or images that are going to damage you in some way over a course of looking at these? Developing markets where it's going to be cheaper to hire people. The next topic and that one's been a known one, right?
Wow.
But with AI,
That's a miserable topic.
yeah, but here's the thing with AI that became even more interesting. We're going to developing markets to do, number one, data labeling.
Yeah.
Right. And we are scraping all the data from those markets because they don't have enough of sort of an economic powerhouse to protect themselves, like, let's say, Europe has with GDPR. So you can start to extract all of this. And this goes back to, I just read this book, I think it was called Cobalt Red, just right, like 6 months ago. And it was all about mining of rare earth minerals in the Congo for the phones that we use and the devices that we use, and how this is taking advantage of exploiting things, how colonialism is still alive and well. You think about that in terms of like people, places, and physical things. You don't think about it in terms of data and AI, but is that something that people aren't necessarily as attuned to? That all the products that we're using are coming at the cost. Our benefit is still coming at the cost of developing countries.
Yeah. It's like a big freight train that's moving along at the moment, this train of progress, of evolution, particularly in AI, and it's not slowing down. If anything, it's speeding up. I know when we started seeing the advent of tools like Midjourney and the amount of uproar there was around artists' work being stolen, models being trained and put out there, and then I was looking into Adobe's Firefly model yesterday, I think, on how that's been trained allegedly on work that's in Adobe's control and that's owned by them, or publicly accessible, which is the grey area I'm a bit interested about. But it should be sort of guilt-free AI generation is really how it's being positioned, which I like. I don't think AI should be compromising other people's ability to make money or to see their talent shine. I think that's still evolving. It'll still evolve. But data's just a less glamorous, a less obvious view of the same thing.
But that's such a great example, right? Who is getting punished by the training for these AI tools? It's not Disney, who is lawyered up and can fight these companies back. It's all the small, it doesn't have to be developing countries, right? And I tend to be on the side of, hey, if you put your stuff online, sort of, yep, it's going to get scraped, it's going to get copied. So I tend to be a little bit more on the side of, hey, everything's open. But I definitely know that if I come in and I can copy an artist that is not big, right? And I can sort of take their work. I know that there's something intrinsically wrong about that I have paid no toll to learn that skill. Yeah. Right? Because if I'm a person, if I want to copy an artist, I at least have to sort of put in the time of learn their style, learn their skills. It's like playing guitar, right? Yeah. If I want to sound like Stevie Ray Vaughan or Van Halen, I'm putting in the work to do that. But now, if I don't have to put in the work, I can see that. Yeah.
Do you know what? I don't know how I got here. I was on a rabbit hole on various doom scrolling things recently, but I was there's some guy online who's taken the Prodigy tracks and broken down where all the samples come from, and then I saw another one by Fatboy Slim and Rockefeller Skank and how that was put together, and you start to understand the history and the craft behind it, and you go from seeing these people who've put together essentially collections of samples into new innovative art forms, and you start to appreciate a bit more of the talent and skill behind it. But they paid licensing fees. All right, some of them not as much as they should have done, but there is a tax there that's paid by these artists to be able to release their content. And I wonder if there is an opportunity to do something like that, where there are clear influences on the artwork side of things, whether there should be a sort of a community-driven onus to acknowledge that influence, not to stop it, but to say, okay, there's a clear influence by these three people, so pay them a royalty for their contribution.
I'm going to go slightly to the side of what you just said and take us back to whatever it was a few weeks ago, last few episodes. The ongoing discussion of the delta between AI and humans. And you brought up something a few weeks ago that was really nice, which was we can be the nexus and we can connect things that are orthogonal. For people to do that level of sampling and that level of sort of combining those tracks, you need to have not only an understanding of all these different samples, of all these different pieces, you need to go to the record stores and do the sourcing and the finding.
Yeah.
And you have to have the taste and the idea, but you have to have the vision of where this can go. You have to have the vision of what these things feel like when they are clustered, when they are pulled together. I don't think AI replaces that. I think you still need to have that vision. So what you said before, going back to that nexus where what is our value, right? In this world where I still on LinkedIn every day, I refresh my feed there. There is another set of articles, hundreds of them. AI is coming for your job. These are the jobs in 24 months that will no longer exist.
Rage bait.
It annoys me to no end. But if you are truly that nexus, like, look, in 10 years, who knows what will happen? But for right now, if you can still operate that, if any of us go to one of our clients, financial institutions, travel, and we can not just talk about, here's what you need to do out of the box in order to get the conversion that you need, but here are 3 ideas pulled from other industries that are going to benefit you and your customers, and you have that nexus of information where you can take the samples from other pieces and bring that in. That is such a powerful way of working and a powerful way of creating experiences, having conversations, whatever that is. I just think there's something there that people don't give enough credit to that goes so far beyond what's the interface. It's what's the need, what's the conversation, what's the input, what's the output. There's so much more to pull apart, and there's so much more deeper thinking that can happen.
Yeah, you're right. And we've talked quite a bit about outcomes being a good point of focus, but I think what you're alluding to when you talk about the conversation is actually brings me back to the idea of storytelling, and that the best, most successful brands out there know how to tap into the value and the power of storytelling, that we quite often don't buy products and services because of the end output, because of even the value associated with it necessarily. We buy into a story. And I found this while I was on holiday, actually. We've got a tour guide taking us around one of the places in Istanbul when we were there. And the guy's like, do you want to come to my shop earlier? I'm like, I've been down this road before. I know how this is going to play out. He's like, I'll make you tea and you can see my carpets. I'm like, okay, I really know how this is going to play out. But do you know what? We're not busy. And okay, why not? And he was a nice guy. I was getting on with him. We had a good chat he was quite informed about the history of Istanbul, which I was enjoying. So I'm like, fine, let's go. And he took us to the archetypal carpet shop, which is covered in carpets, and started showing us his carpets. And at one point he showed us an $8,000 carpet. I'm like, I'm never going to buy that. But he showed us some other stuff. And we got to the point where I'm saying, look, I've enjoyed this conversation and I like you. And I will buy your carpet as long as you tell me the story about it, because I'm buying into you and your story and your history more than necessarily the carpet itself. So I recorded him telling me about the carpet and I came away with a carpet. And it was a nice experience. So I bought a memory and experience and a carpet which we'll put on the wall, which wasn't $8,000.
I mean, isn't that the whole point of the experience economy, right? Like we why do you go on vacation? Why do you go to different places? Like, you buy the experience.
Yes.
And Airbnb is trying, like, that was the whole, where did that Airbnb redesign go? That was all the rage, like 3 months ago. And now I haven't heard peep one from it. No. Everyone was like, oh my, like, okay, there's going to be a rant here. Right, where they did the rebrand and like designers were losing their shit. Look at these icons. This is the most beautiful set of icons ever. This is the most beautiful redesign. This this speaks to why design is so important. And where is it, right? Like, is it doing well? Is it doing bad? I don't know. I haven't heard anything.
Did it eclipse all the horror stories that you hear about Airbnbs being used for party houses or worse? But
like there were so many other challenges. Like, were the icons really the thing that we needed to lean into? I don't really know. But that was a tangent to the point of, the part of that whole rebrand or rethinking of the experience was the idea that they sold experiences.
Yeah.
Right? They didn't just sell a bed in a city.
That you can't get in a hotel.
Yes. It was a unique experience. I mean, they already sort of had that. It was sort of a repackaging of that. But yeah. One
of my best Airbnb experiences was we rented a cave house in France, which was like literally dug into the side of a hill. And it was all sort of natural rock inside it. Janitor hated it, but I loved it. It was like Swiss Family Robinson cave house, proper rough walls and quite big inside and covered in sort of French antiques. It was amazing. It's not something you could ever get in a hotel.
If I bring this back to the AI conversation, because that's what's always on my brain in these podcasts. Like one of our first episodes, we talked about the age of average, the sea of sameness.
Yes.
That so many of AI tools generate outcomes that are
Starbucks-like,
yes,
or Hilton-like.
Yes, the median.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's the best that you're going to get.
It's not bad, but it's not going to change the world.
Yeah. I mean, it's why, as you said, why do you go to Starbucks on vacation? Why do I go to McDonald's sometimes, even if I'm in
you know what you're
Malaysia,
get. It's
right?
reliable.
Yeah. You know what you're going to get, but at other points, I want that unique experience. Yes. It's actually an interesting point. We tend to think of experiences, at least when I talk to tons of different clients, as one or the other. Like, we've talked about this in the last few weeks, right? So out of the box
exactly.
with sort of customization or complete uniqueness. And maybe we had the wrong thought a few weeks ago. Maybe it's not picking a path. Maybe it's you have the elements to craft and create any path. It is about what I want as the user. This goes back to that, like from weeks ago, we had this, that if I send a message in text, you get it in text. If I send it in voice, you get it in voice. But the way that I send it isn't necessarily the way that you want to receive it. Maybe this is the whole challenge with AI, that myself as a creator of a digital experience, instead of thinking about what that experience output is, I provide like a platform of tools.
Yes.
And the person that is receiving that experience based on what I know about them, then I don't know if I would say they are allowed to control that or if it is customized to them.
Of course.
But
that's perfect.
But yeah, there's something in that you divorce the sender and the receiver. Yeah. And that's something I had not thought about until literally right now, even though we talked about it weeks ago with the message. But if you think about that from the totality of experiences, like full-on experiences, that is such a fundamental shift that the person creating and the person receiving can have completely different things in mind. And therefore, the experience of the person receiving is just built upon a base of tools from the person creating.
I think about how many WhatsApp conversations I've had where I've sent someone a text message and they've sent me a voice note back. I'm like, oh my God, I've now got to listen to this. I'm on a call. I can't listen to stuff, so I've got to reply to it later. Or where I've sent someone a voice note and they've sent me a text message back. I'm in the car. I can't read that right now, so you'll have to wait. Why? Exactly what you've just said. What does it matter what the format that they want to send it in? It matters how I want to receive it.
This gets to a whole idea. We must have talked about this 6 months ago or so, right at the beginning. I think we did. Maybe it was episode 2 or 3. I don't remember. It was the idea that with AI and with new input-output, right? So if that's glasses and earbuds and all of these things, I can shape and create a reality that is unique to me.
Yes.
That was the whole idea of dynamic interfaces. And that, so what we just said is essentially dynamic interfaces, right? That it is creating an interface for me based on the context and the devices that I have and the personal ecosystem I have. I think the point that I didn't make months ago was that the sender and receiver can be such a different idea of
Yes.
what that input and output is, and why I think, like, even though those are sort of two sides of the same coin, why I think that's really interesting at the moment. How do I, as a designer of an experience, think about something that I like? Maybe it's I have no control over, or I have little control, or like there's something there that I am just producing qualia, right? Or producing like bits and pieces that are being received by somebody and put into order, right? So what's the other word for qualia that I'm thinking of?
I don't know qualia.
Oh,
that's my word for the day now.
Oh, like the elements, all the elements and pieces around you. I forget the actual definition. I tend to think of it as like all the experiences and ephemeral and tangible pieces around you that form the foundation of the reality that we have. So all the bits and bytes. But yeah, it's man, this is making me go back to Fall or Dodge in Hell, which is a book that I didn't really like when I read it, and now I'm understanding how visionary it was.
But let me push back on it a little bit, and I'll tell you why. I think there's another question in there. When we send messages, the medium is important, and whilst there is a convenience aspect to how we receive it, we talked about voice over text, how we send it does have some relevance. And the best example I can give you is, if you remember the film Watchmen, when that was created, there was a big pushback or people asked why Alan Moore, the writer of the original comic books, seminal comic books, was not interested in it, was not didn't have anything to say about it. And the predominant reason behind that was because this story was designed for comic book form, and that translating it into a movie form was never ever going to work in his mind because it wasn't designed for that. So it might be a good film in its own right, but it wasn't his art piece that he designed for that specific format. It would be something different, good or bad. When we send, and we have this problem when we send emails. I've a very strong belief that when you send me an email, I read it in my tone of voice, not your tone of voice. So this is how people can quite easily take offense at emails, because when you talk in language,
that is a great example.
So when you start to say, well, I'm going to take your message, your text message, and translate it into voice, it's then read by an AI voice, because it's not trained on your voice. It's going to be some random AI voice. And they're going to put an intonation and an emphasis on it that might not be what you intended. And language is so flexible and so malleable, there is potential for misinterpretation, and vice versa. When I listen to your voice and translate it via speech to text into a text, I might not get the emphasis that you placed on certain things, and even things like sarcasm might not come through as well.
I just had to have
deal with that.
No, I mean, I think that's a great sort of a little bit of information, because on, I think it was Friday, this poor designer that I was working with was messaging me, and I was in the middle of a bunch of stuff. So I'm sending back very short, curt messages. And somebody grabbed me later in the day and told me, like, this person is terrified of you. He thinks you're angry at him. He thinks that you're very upset. And I was like, no. I was just in the middle of stuff. Like, I didn't. So I had to like call him, and I'm like, hey man, like, I'm so sorry. I'm in the middle of a bunch of stuff. I did not like, I was just shooting off messages quickly. But I read back on them, and I was like, oh yeah, I could see in my tone of voice at the moment, it was just like, yep, do this, do that, yep. But I could see on his side that it could have come across like, man, what the hell are you doing? Right. And I think that is such a nice way, that breakdown of, the sender and receive. We need to coin all of these things, like the sender receiver problem.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. And I think, come back to yours, how does a designer deal with that? I think at the moment, at least, there is a finite set of channels or of output that you're designing for. So whilst it's not as simple as and straightforward as it might have been, I think it's still limited. I think when we start to move beyond the exact communication, so the word structure, the sentence structure, and into more an interpretation of data points within that, and that's where I get back to this whole idea of we store content in databases based on semantics. So you don't store the whole sentence, you store the keywords. And you then retrieve it. If we start moving to a communication model based on that, then it gets very, very difficult.
I feel like there's something in here about where people are doing the how do you visualize dreams, right? Where it's like you put the sensors in someone's head and you visualize it and it's sort of a mess. But why I was thinking about that is you said inputs, outputs, and I was like, okay, so there's audio, visual. But years ago, I did research for a company that was doing BCI, brain computer interface work.
Okay.
Right, because they wanted to understand how people would perceive this. Gee, how do you think? Right? There's like so many people were just terrified about it.
So I can send you an email when I'm angry and make you feel that I'm angry.
Yes, there is. I do in my open on my desktop at all times. I have some pictures from a journal, and some of that is like, how have you used your words today?
Okay.
Right. It was, so what that's made me do is I wake up in the morning. And I always do my day prep like really early, but I'm also in a pretty big rush. And what I've found is it's not about like, oh, have I had coffee yet or whatever. It's more, have I actually had a moment to breathe and think, oh, my communications aren't just about the task. It is the tone and the style.
Yeah.
And so I might write it when I wake up at 4:30, and then I might revisit it at 8 o'clock at 8 a.m. And then I'd be like, oh, wait, I need to add this and change this. And it has nothing to do with the content, but it's the tone.
So you just made me think of something that I really want to build now, which is like if I could write something, which I will probably, write an email, have an AI analyze that email and say, based on what you've written, these are the 3 keywords that I'm taking away from this. You sent this, you appear angry, impatient, and short. So are those what you want to say? And you say, oh no, I don't want to say angry. I want to say it would be efficient and clear. So clicking those boxes instead, rewrite the email to convey that instead.
Self-sentiment analysis.
Yeah.
There
like
we go.
That.
Yeah, because I was like, well, what you're describing is sentiment analysis, but it's a reflection back.
Yeah.
And one of the things I've learned through all the years, now decades of coaching, I tend to be more direct accidentally than most people, and people take that as rudeness or gruffness. And I in no way mean it to be like that, right? I just like, for me personally, I'll give you an example of this. It still to this day drives me bonkers when people write me good morning and then nothing else. Like I cannot deal with it. Because all I can think is...
Especially if there's a pause.
Yeah, that's the thing. If you just write good morning and then it just sits there, I'm like, what do you need? So I will literally...
Well, how are you? And you answer them and then that's it.
Oh, no, nobody does. No. Whenever,
but the Middle East, though, everybody starts every message with, how are you doing? And I hope you're well. I'm like, I have to force myself to put that in.
So what I write back is, I just write back, put everything in one message, please. Right? And some people I've found accidentally that I've really offended some people doing that. I didn't mean it at all. I'm just... I walk in at 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. and I get hit with 30 messages to start the day. I need to triage them. In order to triage them, I need to know, what do you need from me? Yeah. And if it's, if I'm looking at good morning, I'm like, just can you give me, get to what you need? But I understand now that I'm maybe the way that I communicate is not always the best. But that is... There's a great self-sentiment
But it might
analysis.
be for people like you. It might be exactly right. So I think that's the thing. We are all different people, and it's good to be different.
Yeah, I think this is why I loved Netherlands so much. Is the Dutch are very direct.
Very direct.
Like I remember at some point somebody just told me like, I'm getting very angry with you. I was like, oh, I didn't. Okay, I'm sorry about that. But I loved it.
Yeah.
I was like, that was wonderful.
Yeah.
Right. Or I remember another thing where I had a date with someone, and then I messaged him. I was like, hey, do you want to go out again? No, I don't think so. I didn't really feel any connection. I was like, that is the best message ever. Thank you. You have a great day. Like,
yeah, it took me a while to get used to it.
So easy, so wonderful. But I think that's where we can wrap it up at this week. My failed dating life.
Oh, but I like the self-sentiment analysis. I think that's brilliant.
Yeah. Did you mean to sound like this? But again, this like ways that AI can help us that are beyond a little text box.
I'm going to give myself a chance to build that for our next one, and we'll see how it plays out.
All right. Well, let's see what coffee we have next time, or let's see what flavor of Monster Energy I can bring. I have found new flavors. There is an ultra red flavor. I don't know what red tastes like, but if it's anything like any of the other color flavors, I'm sure it'll be delicious.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But Dunbar,
it's been good.
Been good, man. Yep. See you soon.